You're in the rant wormhole where I rant about whatever my $15 a month plus patrons want me to rant about. You can get one by becoming one. Today's is brought to you by Me Manifest, who wants me to rant about ironic anime fans. I've never seen anyone who I would describe as like full blown only watches anime ironically. And if I met that kind of person, I probably would put a lot of distance between myself and them. I generally I don't really get watching things ironically because I don't get the guilty pleasures, kind of mindset. I feel like when you become a critic, or like when you study criticism in any way, when you read criticism, if you write it for long enough, and like you read people who are like influential, like you come across pretty quickly the idea that that there's no reason to have the concept of guilty pleasures because nobody decides what is good taste. Good taste is always going to be in the eye of the beholder, and it's like you could grow up around people who set you up to believe like that certain things are good and certain things are bad just because like that's just what you were taught, and then you can hear what someone else has to say and then get into something completely different and then totally change your mind about what's good and what sucks. So like trying to say like, oh, this is a guilty pleasure because I know it's bad, it's like you're not really talking about a like global value judgment. You're not saying that you know it's bad for most people. You're saying that it's bad amongst like the people who you know, or amongst like some group who you would consider yourself trying to impress. It's like I would, if I liked an Adam Sandler movie, I would probably not like feel comfortable admitting that in front of a film critic. Like if I was a big fan of Jack and Jill, but I was also a big fan of Red Letter Media, I might be embarrassed to admit that I liked that movie in front of them. But I don't think that they would give a fuck. Like, I don't think they would hold it against you that you liked this movie any more than to maybe passively rib you for enjoying it. But like, sincerity is always, it's like if anybody makes a big deal out of you liking what you like, that person is always an asshole, and you should just not involve yourselves with them. Like, it's the biggest calling card in the world to say, like, oh, you have to like this stuff to be cool, or to consider yourself subservient to that culture. Like, that is the biggest calling card that you're not somebody I want to hang out with. If you're like, oh, this is my guilty pleasure, is Pokemon, and I'm like, you don't gotta feel guilty about liking Pokemon. Everybody likes Pokemon. Like, you, there's nobody's holding it against you, but like there was a point when people did hold that against me, and like I never felt guilty about it. So like for me, it's almost like if you tell me Pokemon's a guilty pleasure, I'm like, hey man, I didn't even feel guilty about liking this when I was getting bullied. I felt empowered to defend myself and that I liked this show for good reasons. So, like, I guess I'm being snooty about this. But, like, yeah, so I feel as though there's always those people who watch things ironically. They watch things because it's bad and they think it's funny that it's bad. And that's fine. Like, sometimes that stuff is sincerely funny. Sometimes it's just bland and terrible. My fiance told me that her friends used to watch, like, really terrible Adam Sandler movies all the time because they thought it was funny to do that, to watch these really bad movies. But those movies aren't bad in funny ways. They're just bad because they're really cynically and like they're made very simplistically. They're cheap and badly put together. And it's not funny because you know that they knew that. You know that the people in the movie were well aware that they were making a cheap, shitty movie full of ads. And they just did it anyways. They did it because they knew they would make a bunch of money off of it. There's nothing funny about seeing a boring movie that looks like shit. Like, so, you know, I don't get that kind of ironic viewing. I don't know if those guys were legitimately getting something out of watching those movies somehow, but like watching something like Garzy's Wing or Fateful Findings or The Room, it's like you're watching it because it's an entertaining piece of media. You know, it's entertaining for different reasons from how you usually enjoy things, but it is legitimately entertaining. There's no reason to feel guilty about, considering one of those to be one of your favorite movies, because you can legitimately get the best experience out of watching them, out of any movie you might watch, and, like, does it matter why that is the case? Like, who cares why it's your favorite movie? It just is. It just is your favorite. So there's no reason to flag it as a guilty pleasure or, to say it's awesomely bad. Like, it's just awesome, in a way that is unconventional. And, sure, part of it is to see the difference between intentions and reality and to try to piece together in your mind, like, what these people thought they were doing when they made these things. But, it's all a rich tapestry of why you're enjoying the movie. Ultimately, if you're watching things just because they're bad, then I have to question, why do you have so much free time? Like, why would you focus on that instead of why not watch something you'd like? Why not just watch something that you will sincerely enjoy and feel as though you get something out of? Like, you can watch something that's hilariously bad or watch something that's great, and you can have just as much to say about it. But I think a lot of people just like having something to tear down. Like, I think some people honestly just have fun mocking a show. And, like, I know it's not always, like, just people who are assholes. Because, like, my brother Victor and his fiance, they will watch stuff, like, they will watch stuff that they consider bad on, like, Netflix and just watch the whole thing so that they can talk shit about it later on their podcast. Like, they enjoy having something to beat up on for being, incompetent at doing what it's trying to do, which is just Schadenfreude, basically. Like, just Schadenfreude over people who are making more money than you to do something worse than you feel like you could do yourself, I think that's how a lot of, like, I don't know if, like, a lot of critics necessarily think that they can make a better movie than the people who make movies, but I think that they might believe that if they had the means at their disposal and that they had, like, like, they just wouldn't fuck up that badly. Like, they can imagine that if they had gotten grandfathered in like, some of these other guys did, then they could have been the ones to nail making a great indie film. I don't know, I'm just going off into the weeds at this point, but yeah, I just don't understand watching things ironically, personally. I watch things because I like them.